All right, here we are, Sean. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing fantastic, man. Good to be
That's
good to be
good.
with you again. Always, man. It's always good to come and spend time talking to you, man. I love it.
Well, I'm it's my birthday, and
Man,
I
I had no
put on my
idea. Happy
special
birthday.
birthday shirt to meet up with you, man. So I'm excited to spend some time with you on April 19th. So good to see you, man.
Happy birthday, man. Birthdays are very special to me. I'm always very excited about birthdays. Some folks get older and they're like, oh, just another day, but like, nah, it's always special. And I want to say a very special happy birthday to you,
Well, I spent about the last 20 years like deciding consciously not to celebrate my birthday. For some
man.
reason
Right.
this year, I'm just I don't know. It's like I got kids and
Yeah.
you're like,
True.
well, I'm getting
True.
older. What's the big deal about my birthday? But then I started thinking, well, life ain't been that bad. So
Yes. Yes.
this year we're doing it up a little bit with a birthday shirt.
That's
Um,
good, man. Congratulations.
well, hey, so let me go ahead and introduce you, and then
Yeah.
let's talk about your book
Okay.
and your and also your new book. So
Yes, sir.
I'm I'm excited to talk to you today. Mr. Seanathan Polidore is a modern day griot. You're the son of Clarence and Versana Polidore and grandson of Cornelius and Dora Lewis. He continues the Griot legacy in his family, observing modern life, the timelessness of human nature, and speaking the wise words passed down from the Black experience in America, deeply rooted in the traditions of Africa. So Mr. Polidore earned a Master's of Science in Psychology and taught at the college level at the University of Louisiana and South Louisiana Community College. He enlisted for 4 years in the U.S. Navy. He traveled to 23 different countries and saw the world. He's been an instructor for Barbizon Beauty School, a co-host of KGBC's morning radio show, and has authored 6 personal development books. Mr. Polidore devotes his creative time to public speaking on topics such as increasing literacy skills, bullying, standardized testing, drug violence, and motivation for the future at high school and other graduation commencements. On his podcast, he interviews Black authors such as New York Times bestseller Robert Jones Jr., Dr. Imani Perry, and many more, including self-published independent authors. Mr. Polidore works as a healthcare security guard to provide financial security for his family while he pursues his calling as a modern day griot. So thanks a lot, Sean, for being here today. How are you doing?
Man, it's Friday. Fantastic. Just waking up, right? I work at night for the most part, so this is my morning. So today is just starting off for me.
Very good. Why don't we talk a little bit about your book, Modern Day Griot? Uh, there goes Modern Day Griots and Griottes. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation. You could always correct me at any time. Why do you tell us like what is a griot?
So in short, the griot from the old Western African tradition, the griot was the storyteller, the keeper of the tales of the tribe and the culture. And as they moved and navigated in different places in Africa and throughout the world, they were the ones that were like the walking Google, I call it, the walking library. They kept all the archives of the history of the wars, who got married, the children that were born, the wars they lost, the wars that they won, how they overcame certain things. They were the ones that kept the traditions going for the upcoming generations and things like that. So it's a very, very vital role within the system.
And how did you get inspired to write this book with Kofi? And can you tell us a little bit about how that collaboration came together,
Yeah.
and kind of what was going on with you that you wanted to share this.
Yes, sir. So you mentioned my podcast earlier, the Sean P. Experience, where I interview a wide range of authors. Kofi was initially a guest on my show about his book called Africa's Hair, about the history and the tradition and culture of African hair and how that relates to today's time, right? That show went so well. Our natural chemistry with each other was so good. We spoke after the show, like, man, we ought to do a podcast together. And so the title of the Modern Day Griot came from both of us being authors already, both of us being lecturers and presenters, and we do a lot of storytelling anyway. Why not do a show about the importance of doing that in modern times? That's how it started. And then the show went good. We did 2 episodes, and before you know it, it's like, you know what? We should do a book about this currency. So from a very, very organic, just conversational place, this whole thing was birthed where we're writing books, and we have merchandise, and we have our ongoing podcast. The podcast is in season 2 right now, as we speak, season 2 of the podcast. So it's just really naturally steamrolled, seriously.
And then that turned into this book. And you and I, kind of early on in our conversations, you introduced this concept of a griot to me, and I never knew anything about it, right? But like, what inspired you to spread the word of, or the story of the griot to
Well,
everyone through the book?
yeah, I think because as you'll see in the book, Kofi does a wonderful job in his chapters laying out. There are like almost 16 or 17 plus roles the griot played besides storytelling. But you also have, besides the roles he played, the ways in which he displayed this storytelling. It wasn't like just oral tradition. When I say the word griot, a person might think, all right, even the cover of the book, right, is this older gentleman and the children sitting around him, right, while he's giving the stories. But besides that, they use music, they use acting, dramatically, they use comedy, they use a lot of different ways they told the story. So the point in today's modern day griot is how many ways people are already operating as a storyteller. They're just not realizing, oh, I'm being a griot. All of these radio personalities, all these podcasts everywhere right now, podcast hosts. If you're in the community doing lectures and speeches, you're a teacher, you're a person in your family passing down cooking recipes. Maybe your family way of passing down was through recipes. I had an author on yesterday's show. She talked about this old book she had from her great grandmother or somebody. It is just full with recipes and articles and things like that. They pass that down generation to generation. That's still being the griot through
Yeah,
food.
that was one of the things that I was going to ask you. Because one of the things we've talked about is how this is an enduring tradition, right? And in my mind, I was thinking, well, does it get passed down from grandparent to parent to the current generation? But it sounds like there's many ways for a person to embody that spirit of the griot.
That's true. And I always feel like all of us have a very unique story. See, in your personal life, you feel like, man, my story's not that important. My story's not that grand. Like, who want to hear about this? But I feel like you might say something very
That's me.
unique that a person across the world might see and say, man, that spoke to me. Chapter 3 was my exact story. Chapter 5 is my life. I needed that. That one sentence changed my life. You never know what that's going to be. So I think that we all have the power to tell our unique story that might resonate with somebody somewhere. So I think we're all storytellers, and I think we have a responsibility, especially if you're a parent, you have a responsibility to pass on things to that next generation. Tell them avoid pitfalls or do something better than what you did, whatever it might
be. Yeah, look, that was one of the things you mentioned earlier. You said that one of the primary roles of the griot is a storyteller. And can you talk a little bit about where you've gotten inspiration for your stories and how those have gotten passed down in your family?
Yeah, my grandfather, I would call him the master griot. My grandfather has, he's 86 right now. He has this encyclopedic memory, I would call it, right? He's so old, his memory is so short. He can give you any story, time, date, place, geography, all kind of things, right? The day of the week, what time it was. He has this comedy element to him, very comedic, but he can also get very deep and philosophical and very, so all of these variables he have in one man. And I spent my whole life living in that household, hearing him talk at length my whole life about various things. So I guess subconsciously, as a young man, I picked that up, unknowing to me.
Yeah.
But as I got older, my grandmother phenomenal storyteller. My mom being a long time educator. My family's a big family of educators and things like that. So I think just growing up in an environment like that, it was always us having so much banter in our house. It was never a quiet house. Always talking. And we all get a chance to talk. In some households, a child can't speak. A child got to be quiet. In our household, we always had a voice. Could
Right.
always talk and chime in and take part. And so my grandfather's house, being the man that he is, a lot of very important politicians came to our house. A lot of very important, prominent people came to our house. And they'd be in the living room talking. And the child supposed to stay in the child place, but I would, tiptoe into the living room. And I'm a child, but I'm hearing these conversations happening, in my
Yeah.
presence. So I think looking back in my life, I was always around just storytelling and important things being passed between people and the power of the oral tradition, right? It wasn't until I got older where the importance of actual writing came into play. But as far as oral storytelling and things like that, I've been around that for so long. It's there.
Yeah, as you're talking, and I'll just mention for the audience that you and I know each other through your mom, Mrs. Versana, and she introduced us, and I know Mrs. V through Jobs for America's Graduates and work in Louisiana, and I was talking to her about how people would pick up different human skills, right? Because we work with each other on a professional basis, and she used this phrase, and she said it was all in the thumbnail moment, right? We lost Sean. Where'd he go? I'm wondering if I should continue the story. Anyway, Mrs. Versana told the story of everything happening in the thumbnail moment, and I knew exactly what that meant. But then I went to the good old internet, and from there I could not find that phrase anywhere in written down. So anyway, let's see if Sean comes back. Hey, Sean. Oh, he's back here now.
Yeah.
So
I got booted out. I got kicked out.
you're all good. You're hogging bandwidth wherever you are. What I was saying was just like I was asking your mom about like how people would use or learn some of these like skills like communication, human skills. And she said to me, it's all in the thumbnail moment. They used to just learn in the thumbnail moment. And so I went up, I knew exactly what that meant when I heard it, because it created this visual. But then I went into the good old web, looked that up, and I went to Google and I couldn't find that phrase anywhere. So it was kind of neat to think about like that phrase getting passed down or that colorful language. And it's the same thing with you. And so one question I had for you was, you've talked about your grandfather, and I know you're writing a book about him and some of the stories that you remember from him, but also his recounting of his life. And I was just wondering, you devote a lot of time and length in your book to elders. I was wondering if you could just talk to us a little bit about what an elder is to you, what role an elder has in the community, and why that role is important to bring forward in the context of a griot.
So in the book, my partner Kofi, that was his chapter on the elder, right? Matter of fact, it's called Elder versus Older. Because in the old way, if you're a child around an older person, you automatically give respect. You automatically give reverence, right? But we realize that every older person isn't always an elder, right? So in the old African tradition, we had rites of passage. We have different things you got to do to prove yourself in the community to be worthy of to get married, to have a family. A lot of things you have to prove yourself. If you haven't done certain things, you're not automatically an elder because you're older. You can be 70-something years old and not be an elder.
Yeah, and sometimes younger people have a lot of wisdom or elderness in them themselves, right? Yeah, it makes sense. Okay.
And some people are only, it's your birthday today, right? Some people are only going around that sun every year, but they're not getting better. They're not improving. They're not getting more wisdom. They're not learning from past mistakes. So you're going around the sun over and over. Congratulations, but you're not getting any better. So an elder, to me, an elder is getting that wisdom, and they're passing those things on to the generations behind them. They're passing it on to improve the community. They're being positive representation of what hopefully a future young man want to be like, or young woman wants to be like. They're exemplary pillars in the community, right? And we need those elders. And the more and more time goes by, and all this technology comes, and there's having this information gap between generations, I think that's getting lost. Society's getting to a point to where we have less social clubs and social gatherings. We have less things happening. So the elder is pretty much at the house, like put away somewhere. He's not out in the community. He's not out and about, right? So it's becoming less and less that elder influence. And I think in today's society, we're seeing the impact of the elder not really being on the forefront as it used to be. And I think that that's a detriment to society. We got to bring the elders back to the forefront somehow, some way. And my grandfather, once again, he's doing that. My grandfather, since the pandemic, he does Facebook Live like twice a week. He has hundreds of thousands of people chiming into him via the bedside from around the world. He's getting world email now. And it's important for us to close that gap for our elders. And once again, it's being recorded. So I'm big on records lately and archives. Whenever he does pass and transition or whatever, his videos last forever. His lessons are carried on forever. Right?
Yeah.
So, all that's important.
Yeah, I think you're doing some amazing work with him to record not just the acts of his life, but all the stories that he remembers. I mean, and think how far that goes.
There's an old African a quote, like whenever a man dies, a whole entire library is buried underground.
Yeah,
we got to get these stories and these tales before it's too late, because I'm a history buff. I love history. A lot of things I'm reading about, my grandfather probably lived through it or he was around it. So I love reading these things, and then when I can't go home, like what about this? And what about that? He can give me a first-hand account of what certain things was like.
Yeah, there really is not much new under the sun, right? And I mean, and I with my own kids, I think it's important for them to spend time with their grandparents or folks that are a couple generations up versus just me. I mean, those folks know a lot more than either of us, that's for sure.
In that chapter on being the elder, I speak about that being that chain and link where you want to keep somebody in your life 5 to 10 years older than you. You want to keep somebody in your life 5 to 10 years behind you. You in the middle, keeping that thing looping like this. So I keep guys that I mentor for a while. I mentor certain people in private, and I definitely keep a load of mentors in my life to pour into me. So it's a continuous cycle, right?
Well, that's right. It is a continuous cycle, and sometimes you got to figure out a way to latch onto it, and that kind of leads me a little bit back to the book again. One of my favorite chapters was about how you became a storyteller, and then Kofi talked about how he became a storyteller. And for me, it was kind of almost a manual for that. I really appreciated that chapter from both of your perspectives. And I was just wondering if you had a recommendation for someone that wanted to improve their storytelling skills. Like, what would be the first step for you?
Okay, I'm answering that question, but give me 1 second real quick, right? So Kofi and myself, we met a few years ago. So Kofi is my elder in the degree. He's older than me, right? I'm in my 40s. He's like mid 40s, right? My point in saying that is, with you having your business dealing with schools and kids and everything like that, in both of our stories, we were not like amazing students growing up in school. I wasn't like an honor roll kid. I think I graduated with like a 2.3 or a 2.4, something like that. It wasn't like something stellar. But in both of our stories, in our manhood, we became active readers. We became writers and poets and That happened on the tail side of life, not earlier in life. So for any parent watching this, you might say, man, my child not really reading books. My child don't like books. He don't like school. Hope is not lost. The light bulb can still come on, right? To answer your question about what the first thought would be a storyteller, the first thing is reading, man. When you ask most authors, how do I become an author? They're going to say read. If you're not reading good sentences and good paragraphs, if you're not reading a good story arc, if you're not seeing transition and climax and all these things that happen, how can I write that if I'm not seeing it?
Yeah, if I studied it, yep, makes
A
sense.
lot of kids, this is a good question. A lot of kids tell me, I want to play basketball. I want to play basketball. And I mentioned in the book, my original dream was basketball, not writing. A lot of kids in this generation, they don't literally watch basketball games. They don't. They watch
Yeah.
a 30-second reel. They watch a 2-minute TikTok clip of the game last night. They're not watching a 2.5 hour basketball game. So it's very hard for me to understand how are you going to play this game and you're not literally watching what transpired to make this highlight happen. This highlight in the fourth quarter came from something that the person gathered in the first quarter. A
Yeah,
tendency,
yeah.
or a habit, a tale. Oh, I saw this 2 hours ago. And now at this moment, in this time, I'm doing a certain thing based on what I gathered way over here. If you only saw a 30-second clip, you missed that. So how do I become a good writer? I'm not reading paragraphs, I'm not reading sentence structure and vocabulary and all the rudimentary things. You're not gathering that. How could you be a good storyteller? You gotta start reading.
You got to start reading.
You gotta start taking it in some kind of way. And I'm not saying even reading books. It could be magazines. It could be articles. It could be some because like it's tricky because I told myself I wasn't really a reader growing up, but I look back on it. I love basketball so much. I was reading Slam magazine. I was reading Sports Illustrated for kids. I was reading
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
hip hop magazines, Double XL, The Source. What does that mean to you? I was reading the writing of amazing writers. It just wasn't novels. I was reading journalists' work as a kid.
Yeah, so just think about all the things that you and me have connected on, like history, like you said, reading. I'm still trying to get my younger son to read more. I'm trying to get him to watch your podcast and basketball, all that. But tell me about how you became a part of the Bookstagrammer movement and how that how did you get involved in Bookstagram? I know that's a little bit diversion, so we'll go there. Bookstagramming, and then why don't we talk about your new book? Yeah,
we always on topic, man. We always on. It's always a circle, right? So my journey to Bookstagram is very, very. I love telling that story because I came there originally as an author, so I already had 5 books going into Bookstagram. I was trying to be a guest on other people's shows, like I am right now with you, to promote my work. That's what I was trying to do. But nobody would give me a shot, really.
mm.
I understand the business of it. You want to have the New York Times bestseller, the biggest names, the person on Oprah Winfrey's couch. You want that person on your show. It gives you more visibility, likes, clicks, shares, etc. I'm a pretty much virtually a nobody, right? So I understand that. So I kept trying for a long time to, inbox people and try to get an invite. Couldn't get anybody to show. I said, you know what? Instead of trying to be on somebody else's show, I'm going to start a show. And I'm going to give other authors a chance that I didn't get. And sometimes whenever I would get an interview like this, I would call it a halfway interview. Meaning, I could tell a person didn't really actually read the book.
The halfway interview might be an indication of my skills as an interviewer, but I'm trying.
So. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. But I would get an interview, but the person didn't really read the book. So the questions that I wish they would ask, they wouldn't ask those questions.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? I'm gonna do an interview show myself, and I'm gonna display what I wish I would have had done for me. So every guest on my show, I try to do a thorough as I can show. So whenever they leave, they don't feel like, man, I wish you would have asked this. I wish you would have asked that. We didn't even discuss this. I don't want them to feel what I feel in that seat. And that's how it all begins.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm funny. I remember times when I've tried to get a hold of you and you've texted, I'm getting ready for my next show. I'm reading a book or I'm writing out questions. Hey, I got to read it. And, so I think the authors got to appreciate that you show up ready, having read the book, just with cribs,
But
so.
you can tell, right? Because like these authors, even if it's a big name author, right? They go on all of these press runs, these book tours, they're on TV, right? They can tell when a person thoroughly read their work. They can tell when a person is asking them a very nuanced question. And for me, I'm a sport guy once again. A touchdown for me is whenever an author says, wow, I never heard that before. Or they say, wow, I never thought about that. Or they say, wow, that was a great question. Whenever these caliber of people are saying that, I tell myself, like, yes.
Yeah.
Like I did my journalistic, I didn't go to school for journalism. I'm a psychology major. I'm not a journalist. But these high level journalist writers are telling me, wow, that was a good question. I feel so proud about that. Because I spend so many hours per show. Bro, I got the audio version of the book, I got the physical version of the book, and probably the ebook. I'm playing the audio while I'm reading the book. Like it's that stringent to me. That doesn't work. It's probably overkill. It's probably overkill, to be honest. But that's how I feel so confident in the show. I know I've thoroughly gone through.
So give us an example. What's the interview that you just did? And we were talking about it. I forget the author's name. She give me an example of a time when an author like really shared something that you feel like they hadn't shared, on another show or with another, in another interview.
Wow, that I'm blessed to say it happens so frequently.
Yeah,
it's hard to distinguish which one, but one in particular, right? So I had the author on my show a few weeks ago named Ilian Wu.
And that was her. That's the one I'm talking about. That's the one I watched. Yeah.
Her book is called Master Slave Husband Wife. It's a historical fiction book about this couple. They were slaves and they escaped by pretending to be a master slave situation. But they were husband and wife. About 4 different times in the show, she said, you know what, Sean? I'm going to tell you a secret. And then she gives her information. And then some time will go by. She said, you know what, Sean? I'm going to tell you a secret. And then she gives it. And it kept happening organically like that, right? But based on, see, this is something good for the audience to understand. The quality of the answer is based on the quality of the question.
That's right.
I'm not tooting my own horn. I asked her something specific that sparked in her mind something she would have never said.
It's all about that preparation.
If I would have asked a very basic surface level question to the show, she would have gave her normal, traditional, basic answers. Yeah. I was asking things unorthodox, so it put her in a different place. And I think that's where these organic things come from.
Well, it reminds me of exactly what you said about how do you become a better storyteller. You start reading and you start understanding how to analyze things and what people are doing with the climax and, denouement and all that. And you break things down. And I think and then the preparation and putting in the work. I mean, you put in the work for each of those shows.
Understand this. As an interviewer, as a host, I studied the craft.
Yeah.
I watch so many podcasts. I listen to so many shows and panels, and I watch moderators and things like that. I really study how they transition. Whenever a person went off the rails, how they got it back on track. That happens sometimes. I'm watching it's like watching a sports game. I'm an athlete watching Tom Brady. I'm watching Michael Jordan. Like how they did this. I'm watching interviews that way. So I'm inundating myself all the time with speeches and lectures and panels and talking. And so people say, Sean, how you do it so easily? I wouldn't say it's so easy. I'm just always immersing myself in it So I can't help it.
Well, I think it's become
10,000 hours to master a craft. I'm putting in the hours.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't really play music it's a crazy story. When I'm driving in the car, I haven't played music in like a decade, really. It's always a podcast. It's an audio book. It's a lecture. It's a speech. For years, over a decade, I'm doing that. Over a decade.
And that's what creates
Dedication to
the but on the other hand, you realize that you can't just rely on that. You got to do your homework before the interview. So, well, let's go ahead. You're gonna make another point.
One last thing, just like martial arts, you know martial arts too. We have another connection point for us martial arts.
Yeah, little Wing Chun.
You go through all the belts, right? Get to that ultimate black belt, and at the very end, you realize something. You let it all go. The way is there is no way.
Yeah.
So I'm getting to a point now in my interview process, so where I have actual less questions solidified written down. I want it to be more conversational than a standard interview, and I'm asking you this question, and you say this, and then the next question.
I'm get you.
I want banter and back and forth. And I love whenever the show ends and the camera goes off. When the guest says to me, "Man, that was so like comfortable," and I felt like we were two friends in a coffee shop, and people that watched the show, they said, "Man, it felt like I was somewhere just observing y'all just talking. It didn't feel like an interview." So I do all this prep and all this study and all this stuff to let it go and just talk. So I asked you one question. You gave me an answer based on that. The rebuttal comes naturally. And now
and I noticed that in the interviews that it does go by pretty quick. People are natural, and I really appreciate it. So I'm in the comments later, once the recording's on various channels, I'll make sure to put a link to your podcast and also a link to your book. But why don't you talk to us a little bit about your new book, Acting on Your Dreams and Visions. The book we talked about today was Modern Day Griot. And there you go, the Modern Day Griot and Griottes. But here's a new book, Acting on Your Dreams and Visions. Oh, there it is. I got to get a copy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that's about, and then I'll put a link in the chat for everyone.
So once again, the Modern Day Griot podcast is the catalyst, right? You know how Apple has their flagship product and everything else is Apple product. The Modern Day Griot podcast is the flagship product. And then we have these things we're doing. So Kofi and myself, and then our new host is Dr. Ashley Wade. She is a phenomenal sister based out of the Dallas, Texas area. She's a pharmacist, right? So as far as her trade, but she's also a very big person on history and self-help and bettering yourself. And she's a community activist, amazing sister out there in Texas. She's our newest addition to the show. So we say, you know what? For every season of the Modern Day Griot, we're going to do a different publication. So this book, Acting on Your Dreams and Visions, is just about that. So many people have dreams and visions and things they claim they want to do. This book is meant to be an action book, in my opinion. It's not about a bunch of theories and philosophy and all that sounded good and put the book back on the shelf. Like, no, there are action steps to be taken to manifest from your mind to your hands, whatever it is you want to do. So in my book that I write, I love to pose questions. I love to pose questions in my book.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to reading this one. Seriously, that sounds right up. Yeah, that'll be a good talk.
All of these books, right? All the books, they're made with the intent for me, for homeschooling, after school programs, church programs, sororities, fraternities. I even had the books put into prisons and jails and things like that. These books are meant to be used as tools. So I actually have, we put questions in the back of the book.
I saw there's a study guide in each of those. Yeah.
The study guide is questions. I give recommended reading lists sometimes. Like, these are meant to be active books. Active books. So Acting on Your Dreams and Visions is meant to be a step-by-step guide. How to go from something that sounded good in your head to like actionable steps and items, and then discipline to apply, and then completion is the point of this book.
That sounds great. And what I really appreciate again about the Modern Day Griot was I felt like it was a manual for helping me become a better storyteller or start to think about that, right? And what could I bring out of myself? And I'm really looking forward to reading Acting on Your Dreams and Visions. And because if you ain't acting on them, they're not going to happen. So, Sean,
it's just if you're not trying to drill it down, it just stays this thing just flying in the ethos. If you're not trying to drill it down, nail it down every day, what can I put 15, 20 minutes toward this thing every day? What can I nail down? What can I drill down? What phone call can I make? What email can I send? What website can I visit? What YouTube video can I watch real quick toward this thing? That's what it's all about, man. Massive action, taking action, not just talking, action. We live in a very much talking time. We could all get a camera and a mic. We could all get a podcast. We could all get that's easy. Talking. What are you doing?
And it's just a little bit every day. So I'm looking forward to our next talk.
Yes,
thanks a lot, Sean. And any final words for the audience?
Man, the final word is just, once again, whatever it is you claim you want to do, and we all have something that we feel in our heart. Despite your occupation you pay the bills with, it's something you really, really get a fire love doing. How could you get more and more of that in your life per day? That's today's question. I love to leave with a question.
What is it? All right. You take care. I'll talk to you in a bit.
Yes,
thanks.
Yep.
Take care.